When we talked about thermal conduction in a metal, one aspect that might have made you uncomfortable or you may be surprised with it is that we assume that the average electronic velocity at a point is zero. That means that there's no electrical current that flows, but there's only a thermal current that flows. That seems a little difficult to understand because if I have in the one-dimensional example that we considered, if I have a hotter end here and a colder end here, you would expect more electrons to flow from hotter end to the colder end. That does initially happen, and what happens is that would result in a buildup of electrons on one side, that is at the colder end, but that buildup of electrons will will prevent the further flow of charges from the hotter end to the colder end, and therefore you will have a slightly higher concentration of electrons on in the colder end than in the hotter end, and you will be able to actually measure an electric field or a voltage from the hot end to the cold end, and because of the established thermal gradient. So when you establish a thermal gradient, there is a heat flow, but in addition to that heat flow, there is a voltage difference as well between the hot end and the cold end. So there's an electric field that's generated. That electric field prevents the further flow of the electrical current, because you have a buildup of electrons, and that buildup of electrons stops the further flow. So there is a compensation. So initially there is a like I said, initially there is a buildup, and that buildup cancels off or basically stops the further flow of the electrical current. So the Seebeck effect, this is called the Seebeck effect. That is, when you establish a thermal gradient, the thermal current flow is opposite to the direction of the thermal gradient. But in addition to the thermal flow, there is an electric field established, and that electric field is opposite to the direction of the thermal gradient as well. So the existence of this electric field is called the Seebeck effect, and the Seebeck effect can be thought of as the analog of the Hall effect. The Hall effect occurs when you apply a magnetic field. The Seebeck effect occurs when you have a thermal gradient. And just like in the Hall effect, you have a voltage difference between the two ends of the sample here, and the equilibrium is attained when the velocity due to the heat flow, that is the VQ, is exactly opposite of that due to the electric field. So VQ is minus VE. When that happens, then there is no more electrical current flow, and that is the reason why the assumption that the average electronic velocity at any point is zero is a reasonable one. So the Seebeck effect is governed by this equation, where the electric field E is given as Q times the gradient of the thermal gradient. Q is called the thermopower. Now in the case of the thermal conductivity case, we wrote an expression JQ is minus K delta T, and we said that the thermal conductivity is always positive. But in the case of thermopower, what happens is, if there are electrons, if the electrons are the main carriers, then the thermopower will be negative. If there are holes, then the thermopower will be positive, just like in the Hall effect. So the analogy with the Hall effect is much more complete. Just like in the Hall coefficient changes sign, the thermopower also will change sign. The only catch is, just like in the Hall coefficient, many metals will have positive Hall coefficient. Many metals also exhibit a positive thermopower, so that's something that the Drude model cannot explain. The derivation for Q, for an expression for Q, is exactly identical to that of the thermal conductivity case. So I'm not going to repeat those arguments, you can figure it out. So this is the velocity due to the thermal gradient established due to the heat, and you can write this as half the number of electrons moving from left to right, and plus half the number of electrons moving from right to left, exactly the same way. And you can do a Taylor expansion, write it in this fashion, and introduce the thermal gradient as well. And you can write this V dV by dt as V squared. This should be d by dt. Excuse me. This is not dx. This should be d by dt. Sorry about that. So I can write it as d by dt of v squared by 2. And again, I'll go from the one-dimensional case to the three-dimensional case. Please show that in the three-dimensional case, I can write this kind of an expression, and we know the expression for VE already. We discussed this in the previous classes as to be that, and VQ is given to be this. So I establish the equilibrium. VQ is minus VE. That's when there is no current flowing in this electrical current flowing. That's the in the sample. Then VQ should be minus VE. And if I make this equation, then I will be able to get an expression for Q. Notice that Q is now negative, and this negative shows that there are electrons that are responsible for the heat transfer and charge transfer, of course, to establish the electric field. So again, like I said, in the case of thermal conductivity, we got away with the wrong calculations. We said that the specific heat was overestimate by a factor of 100. The velocity was an underestimate by a factor of 100. The mean free path was approximately okay at room temperature. So the room temperature thermal conductivity was okay. We got away with it using a crude classical model. But in the case of the Seebeck effect, if you look at the expression for the thermopower, you cannot run, because there is directly the specific heat is sitting. There's nothing else to cancel off the overestimate by 100. So the specific heat is an overestimate by 100. The thermopower also becomes an overestimate by 100, and this is the one of the biggest failures of the Drude model, which people immediately recognized. All other cases, they were like, okay, that happens at high temperatures, at low temperatures, that's something happens at large magnetic fields, okay, we can get away with it at room temperature and so on. But the thermopower fails even at room temperature, and it fails dramatically by a factor of 100. So this is one of the several reasons why we need to study quantum statistics properly to understand electronic transport in a solid. And we will be starting that from the next class. I would like to point out that quantum statistics will obviously be done properly in the statistical physics course. But because I need some ideas for continuing this discussion, I will be providing you a very short digest of ideas relevant to only electrons and electron transport in metals, and I will do that first, and then we will continue with the second chapter in Ashcroft and Bye bye.